So Scott, if you wouldn't mind, we've got a shot of the aft end of Discovery, and if you go up a little higher, we could see the cargo bay. And why don't we talk about what's inside there?
We have an absolutely amazing spacecraft that we're going to be taking up to the International Space Station, the JAXA's pressurized module, part of the Kibo system. It's the largest pressurized component of the International Space Station, and just truly a remarkable machine.
It really will increase the scientific capability on board the station, and it's so big. I'm supposed to say, how big is it? It's so big that it takes 3 flights to be able to take up entirely, and what other international partners back reduce the size of modules, including the U.S. laboratory. Japanese laboratory pretty much stayed really close to the 20-year-old design, is my understanding.
Indeed it did. They stuck with their original plan. They were going to be the smallest, and now they're the largest.
And it has, I'm sure actually we'll walk through it. So why don't we, I'm gonna get out of the way and let you do your thing.
Okay, very good. If we can go ahead and show the video then. This tries to compress what ended up taking about 5 years into about 6 minutes. The Kibo module arrived at the Kennedy Space Center from Japan in late May of 2003. It arrived by ship. It left Yokohama, Japan on the 2nd of May of 2003 and took 28 days to come across the Pacific Ocean, through the Panama Canal, and up to Port Canaveral. We unloaded all of the hardware at the Navy facilities at Port Canaveral. As you can see, they have a rather massive crane there that was very convenient for our use. The Element came off actually 5 days after the ship arrived, because first we had to get off all of the ground support equipment necessary to support that module when it arrived at the SSPF and get it assembled, and primarily the large rotation stand that the Element has sat in during its campaign here. It then came via truck over to the space station processing facility, where we got it out of its shipping container, which you can see here.
You can actually see the old, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, its older name, NASDA.
Right. While the Element was here, they changed their name from NASDA to JAXA, and so there's still some vestiges of that old agency's logo that you can see around the place. So once the Element arrived, we did get it into its rotation stand so that the Japanese technicians could begin their work preparing the module for flight. The module came a little earlier than it really needed to in order to meet up with the Node 2 Harmony module. As they mate together on orbit, it was decided early on in the program that it would make a lot of sense to try to join the two together, at least electrically, to ensure that all of those interfaces were going to work right before we put the hardware up into space. So shortly after the module arrived, we did perform what we called our multi-element integrated tests, and that was in August and September of 2003. And in that test, we also used a simulator of the U.S. laboratory, again, to make sure everything was going to work right on orbit. What you're seeing here now is a scene of some of the Japanese technicians working on the windows of the module. The Kibo has 2 very large windows that look out over the where the exposed facility hardware will be after the last flight, STS-127. And during the course of the flow, there were a wide variety of tasks that JAXA performed, and some that we actually assisted with, and others we provided advice and support items for JAXA. And over the course of the flow, they installed all of the racks into the module and tested them, not only the racks that are flying up on this mission, the 4, but 7 others that are waiting on orbit for Kibo once it arrives. The flight crew came down numerous times during the campaign, and here they are during their last visit in January of this year. They like to come down and actually touch the flight hardware when they can to practice some of the tools and techniques that they'll use during the flight. Finally, after all the work was done on the 22nd of April of this year, we lifted the Element one last time and weighed it. The module weighs in at 32,220 pounds and 12 ounces. And here it is being translated over for installation into our transportation canister, which we use to keep the module dry and cool during the ride from the industrial area here at the Kennedy Space Center out to the launch pad. Of course, this is a very slow and methodical operation, and what you're seeing here actually took place over the course of about 6 hours. And there it is, just getting ready to set down. you can get a scale for how large the module is, as that canister is essentially the same size as the orbiter payload bay. There's Dr. Tanaka, our local resident manager for GEM project. We rotated the canister to vertical, and then on the 29th of April, we departed for Pad A. The journey out to the pad takes about 3 hours to complete. We go very slow to avoid inducing any vibrations in the spacecraft. And we typically go during a time of day where weather is cooperative for us, and in the time of year that we went out here in April, early evening was a good time to go, so you can see us approaching sunset. We take the payload elements to the pad before the space shuttle vehicle arrives. That allows us to get in place and get our canister out of the way long before the shuttle shows up, so that we don't perturb the critical path for the launch vehicle preparations. And there you can see our transporter going up the incline, just like the crawler that carries the shuttle to the pad. Our transporter can adjust to accommodate that tilt as it goes up the ramp. Once we get to the pad, the canister is actually hoisted up into the rotating service structure of the pad. Inside that rotating service structure is a room called the payload changeout room, and inside that room is a 5-story gantry called the payload ground handling mechanism that picks the payload element up out of the canister and takes it back into the pad structure. Once that's complete, the canister is lowered and taken away. And then we wait for the vehicle to arrive. In this case, we waited about a week. The Discovery came to the pad on the 5th of May, and then that large structure that you see there now rotates around the space shuttle. The payload bay doors are opened, and the element is installed into the payload bay of the orbiter. And there is what the PM looked like after we had installed it into the orbiter and had pulled all the platforms back. That was after we did all of our electrical mates and tests and our final closeouts, final assembly operations. And this is as the doors closed for flight on May 10th. Several of my colleagues and I were there to kiss the hardware goodbye. The next time we'll see it will be tonight, hopefully, when we get on orbit, when it's circling the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour.
That's a good time to see it again.
Indeed it is.